But first, Virginia Beach school officials tell us they are investigating racism at Kellam High School. Good evening, I'm Tom Shad. A message to parents says a group of kids harassed another student.
On March 14th of this year, multiple Virginia local news affiliates produced segments about an alleged racist incident that happened at a local high school where a bunch of white teenagers, for no reason, racially targeted a black teenager, humiliating him, and of course the school's swift response. And by the way, their response was swift and harsh. The students involved were removed from the campus. They were shamed by the principal and other administrative staff. However, all of a sudden, when we fast forward to a couple of days ago, it seems like the story has completely flipped, because now you have the parents of 3 of these alleged evil white racist teenagers filing a lawsuit for defamation to the tune of $10 million due to the fact that the incident was completely mischaracterized as a potential virtue signal for the school officials to say that they were fighting against this evil white racism. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Well, the school board member didn't confirm details, but did say that she and the entire school board received an email yesterday from the school division's chief of staff. 10 Your Side has independently learned some of what was in that email, which does shed some light on what happened yesterday at Kellam. In a letter to parents of students at Floyd E. Kellam High School, Virginia Beach City Public Schools says that, unfortunately, we regret to inform you about a deeply concerning situation where one of our students was subject to racist harassment from a group of other students.
So we have the Kellam High School in Virginia Beach, and of course, they are talking about this deeply troubling, absolutely downright horrifying racial incident that happened between students on their campus. And of course, they leave the details out from the public, but internally, they were discussing what went down in this particular situation, and this is one of the reasons why the families of the students that are the accused are actually alleging that there is defamation going on, because according to them, this incident was completely mischaracterized. But first, we have to hear the allegations, or allegations, as the super mayor would say,
off of hearsay, false allegations, and not facts.
And then we have to make our determination.
While that letter didn't detail the harassment, 10 On Your Side has learned school board members were given more details. According to an email from Chief of Staff Cheryl Woodhouse, the incident involved 6 white students and 1 black student. Yesterday, according to the email, the white students approached the black student in the hallway with a bag filled with, quote, perceived stereotypical black items and a card filled with racial slurs. They allegedly presented the items in the hallway and laughed while encouraging the student to read the card aloud. According to the school district, a staff member who witnessed this incident immediately intervened, and students involved will be disciplined, they say, to the fullest extent possible based on the school division's Code of Student Conduct.
So obviously there are a lot of vagaries in this local news segment. They're trying to keep it ambiguous, but I'm going to break down what is actually alleged in this particular incident so you can understand what went down, what the scenario is, and why, of course, there are people suing for defamation based on how this was all characterized. So first and foremost, the stereotypical items happen to be fried chicken. There was a card that apparently alluded to a bunch of different racial stereotypes that maybe potentially had racial language. However, you can already tell based on this local news segment that things are rather odd as an evil white racial incident when they hand this stuff over to the black kid, and rather than the black kid being offended, he, as encouraged, ended up reading the card aloud to the group. It seems like possibly, maybe, and I might just be speculating here, or I might just be spoiler alerting here, that this was a joke between friends that completely spiraled out of hand. And in addition to that, we're told by the local news affiliate, and they got their information from the school board, that there was an intervention by a teacher almost immediately due to the fact that the evil white racism just completely overwhelmed them. And in addition to all of that, I will also point out that this is a rather nice high school campus based on the overhead shots. It doesn't really have anything to do with the context of the story, but there was no way I could go through this story without actually, addressing that.
However, school board member and Kellam High School parent Melinda Rogers says more still needs to be done.
I feel that we have to do better.
Especially since, she says, this isn't just a Kellam problem.
So they bring out this woman who's a parent of a student at this local high school and also a member of the school board, and she immediately does the cliche thing where she says, I think we need to do better. We need to be better. Thank you so much, lady. And I just want to point out that even though Virginia ended up electing an anti-woke governor, the fact is that these local school boards are often flooded with people like this who just want to fight against the ghost of racism past, and this might be a perfect example of this. Now, we're going to hear a little more from her, and you tell me if my assessment is fair.
What I am hoping that with the student body at Kellam, that they do have more ongoing education about bullying, harassment, racism, and that all of that is continuing conversation, that we aren't just being reactive, but that we're being proactive in our responses, that we are continuing to educate, continuing to tell our students, these are the things that we need to be careful of.
So again, she goes on this rant about how we have to be proactive and not just reactive, even though she's quite literally reacting to a situation, and in an extreme way. Again, these students were expelled for their role in this particular incident, and of course, it's all the cliches about starting a conversation or having a conversation or keeping the conversation going, because all these people can talk about is how we need to talk about at some point in time how we're going to talk about evil white racism in the future, because one of the biggest problems in the United States of America, if you guys aren't aware, is evil white racism, and this is just a perfect example of this. Then this local news segment actually concludes with something that is so asinine and ridiculous, I need to comment on it, but of course we're going to jump to the updates just after this.
Now, we did also hear today from the Virginia Beach Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, which said what happened yesterday was reprehensible, but however, after investigation, they do not believe the conduct rises to the level where criminal charges can be brought under Virginia law.
Am I the crazy one? Am I insane for thinking that this statement right here is in fact the insane, crazy thing? They reached out to the prosecutor that covers this area, the prosecutor that is supposed to deal with crimes, and asked them if they would be pressing charges against these teenagers for giving a kid fried chicken and a card with inappropriate language on it. Is that really something that you needed clarified by the local district attorney's office? Was that actually on the table for this case? Obviously, this doesn't rise to the level of criminality. There was no crime committed here. Even if these people were doing stuff that was evil, white, and racist, in reality, that is protected speech, and it's something that needs to be punished by the school as it violates the terms of the particular school. But the idea that you're going to pursue criminal charges or even think that that is a worthy endeavor to go down as a local news affiliate is absolutely insane. But again, this is how ridiculous we tend to get when it comes to racial issues in the United States of America. But the story doesn't end there. Of course, we have statements from the local NAACP, we have statements from all these different woke organizations, we have the kids who are not identified in this segment but later get identified that are subject to harassment and all the familiar circumstances that we end up seeing as a result of the misreporting of these kind of stories. But now we have a defamation suit that actually brings some more context to this particular story.
And a story new tonight from Virginia Beach. The families of some Kellam High School students involved in an alleged racist incident, they are suing the school's principal.
So of course we end up hearing about the lawsuit that has been filed against the principal of this school, and all of a sudden when we fast forward into the segment when they start going into the complaint, we start hearing allegedly an alleged racial incident and whatnot, even though previously it was talked about as if it was 100% confirmed.
This is a copy of the $10 million defamation suit against the school's principal.
Court documents detail the quote false and defamatory statements made about a situation that was in the headlines this spring. That was when a group of 6 white Kellam High School students got in trouble for allegedly racially harassing a black student. Attorney Tim Anderson is representing 3 of the kids involved. He says what was presented to the public wasn't the whole story.
They shouldn't have been brought out to the town square and castigated in front of the entire community with adults weighing in calling them racist. You don't do that to children.
And so obviously this guy is the attorney for 3 of these people that were involved in this alleged incident, and I find it to be interesting that some people can just say something that is so obviously common sense and yet it is completely overlooked in the hysteria. Like, you don't paint children out to be evil white racists without the full version of the story, or worst case scenario, like is true allegedly in this case scenario, with the full story story, but omitting context in order to make yourself look better, as the principal is accused of doing. I mean, it should go without saying that this is something that is wildly inappropriate, but one of the things that we learned from the Covington case is that the media jumps on board at the opportunity to call underage children, if they're white, evil, white, and racist.
An email sent by Kellam's principal, Ryan Schubert, says in part, quote, "One of our students was subject to racist harassment from a group of other students." He added that a staff member intervened after witnessing the situation and that the students involved would be disciplined for their actions.
The principal said that a teacher had to break up the incident. That didn't happen. We have video evidence.
Anderson says this video paints a different picture.
This very close friend group. All of these boys were close friends. The black child was his birthday. The boys were bringing him a gift for his birthday, a gift that he asked for.
Now, this is really interesting right here, because according to the attorney that, again, is filing the lawsuit, so you could take it with all the suspicion and a grain of salt if you want to, the kid in question, the black kid at the center of this, actually asked for these stereotypical gifts to be brought to him for his birthday, which, by the way, was context that was left out of all previous reporting. Again, I said it was kind of odd for this person to receive a bucket of fried chicken, or whatever amount of fried chicken he got, and a card with racial epithets on it, and then be encouraged to read it, and this to be these people just acting in malice toward the black kid due to their evil white racism. And obviously this additional context, while not confirmed, it is also alleged, actually clarifies this incident much more, and it makes more sense, is more aligned with reality than what was initially presented. And again, the attorney goes further in his explanation.
The child said that the card that was given to him was funny.
The lawsuit alleges that the student who received the gift had asked for fried chicken and candy.
Principal had all that information, but he omitted it, and he spun it up as this is an incident of racial harassment, racial bullying.
Again, another interesting component of this story is if the kid that was allegedly racistly bullied said that he wasn't racistly bullied, this didn't have to be broken up, and he thought the whole situation was funny, and yet the principal and everybody involved still acted in this way, still treated them like they were criminals, and still omitted key details in order to make these children appear to be racist, and in order to make the school look good in that they were fighting the evil white racism. This is one of the crazy things that we find out throughout the course of these local news segments and the reporting and the reaction from the national media, is that a lot of the people in these positions of power want the racist incident to be true. They want the thing to have happened so that they can put themselves as the people on the right side of history, but in reality, in this particular case, it appears that nothing could be further from the truth. It appears that these people just sacrifice these kids in order to satiate the mob that they ended up ginning up, and that's absolutely awful if true.
The multi-million-dollar defamation suit against Schubert was filed on May 22nd by the students' families anonymously. The suit claims that the plaintiffs have since been removed from school, received threats, and have been stalked since the situation unfolded.
Now look, I will keep you updated on the progress of this particular case as it goes on. It would not be surprising for me if this school decided to settle this case, but who knows where it's going to go and how it's going to be responded to by a judge who has the case in front of him. But I will also add, for those of you out there in the audience who are like, well, nothing wrong was done here, no big deal, that while I largely agree with you, I do think it is important and prudent for people to tell their kids, to tell their youths that they shouldn't participate in this behavior, even if it's something among friends in public settings like public schools, because in reality, they're in an unusual position where if somebody witnesses this, reads it as evil, white, and racist, they have to do something about it. They can't just let it go because kids are going to talk about it that are not in the inner circle, and eventually it's going to get out to somebody that this went down, and it's going to be taken the wrong way. So if I were those kids, then sure, maybe you bring him the fried chicken if that's what he asked for, but you don't do the epithets on the card, even if he says he's fine with it. In reality, it's just not something you want to do, not something you want to write down, and it only leads to problems down the line. So I understand to a certain percentage why the school partially reacted in the way that they did. However, omitting the context, ending up lying about the incident in order to make it sound worse, in order to make yourselves look better, is inexcusable, and they should pay through the nose if that is proven to be true. But of course, those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about absolute madness out of the state of Virginia. Till next time.